Elara had always found comfort in the hum of her ceiling fan. It was a soft, steady sound that drowned out the city's clamor and carried her into sleep each night. That evening, she'd fallen asleep with her sketchbook splayed across her chest, pencil still tucked between her fingers, the page half filled with a constellation she'd invented, a spiral of stars she called the Weaver. Her dreams had been restless, as they often were, fleeting glimpses of glowing rivers, skies streaked with impossible colors, and a whisper she could never quite catch. She thought nothing of it, until she woke. Her eyes fluttered open, and the fan's hum was gone. So was her bed, her room, the familiar creak of her apartment floorboards. Instead, a strange, resonant vibration pulsed through her, deep and alive. She sat up, heart lurching as she realized she lay on a slab of translucent stone, smooth and cool beneath her palms. It flexed slightly under her weight, like the surface of a living thing. Above her, a sky churned with ribbons of violet and gold, threaded with glowing mist. 2 moons loomed, one a jagged crimson crescent, the other a pale green orb, casting a silver-blue light that shimmered across the stone. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice small against the vastness. She stood, her bare feet sinking into the stone's strange give. She still wore her oversized t-shirt and pajama shorts, the faded fabric absurdly out of place in this alien expanse. The air prickled her skin, sharp and sweet, ozone-laced with honeysuckle, and the landscape around her defied comprehension. Crystal spires towered like frozen flames, refracting light into rainbows that danced across the ground. Beyond them, a forest swayed, its trees not wood but cascades of liquid metal, flowing and reforming in hypnotic loops. Panic surged, tightening her throat, but Elara fought it down. She was a dreamer, a stargazer who'd spent countless nights sketching worlds beyond her own. This had to be a dream, vivid, yes, but a dream nonetheless. She pinched her arm, wincing at the sharp sting. The pain anchored her, and with it came a chilling truth: this was real. Her breath quickened as she scanned the horizon for anything familiar, a road, a house, a person. Nothing. A sound broke the silence, a low, melodic trill, like wind chimes caught in a breeze. It came from behind a nearby spire, and Elara's curiosity tugged at her, as it always had. She hesitated, then stepped forward, her bare feet silent against the stone. Rounding the spire, she froze. A creature stood there, unlike anything she'd ever seen. It was tall and slender, its body a shifting mosaic of glass-like scales that mirrored the sky's colors. Its face was a smooth, featureless expanse, no eyes, no mouth, yet it turned toward her, and she felt its presence press against her mind, heavy and deliberate. Her stomach twisted, caught between awe and fear. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The creature didn't answer with words. Instead, the trill swelled into a song, weaving through the air like threads of light. Then, something shifted inside her head, images flickering, unbidden. She saw a city of floating platforms, their edges dissolving into mist, a sea of molten light, rippling with voices, a crowd of beings like this one, bowing before a radiant orb. The visions weren't hers, yet they felt intimate, as if painted across her thoughts. Then came her own memories, her childhood telescope, chipped and beloved, her mother's teasing laugh as they stargazed on the roof, the night she'd sobbed into her pillow after losing her job. The creature was inside her, sifting through her life. "Stop it," she shouted, stumbling back. The song faltered, and the creature tilted its head, as if puzzled by her reaction. It extended a limb, long, fluid, ending in delicate tendrils, and pointed toward the horizon. A faint glow pulsed there, brighter than the rest of the landscape. An invitation? A command? Elara couldn't tell, but the gesture stirred something in her, hope, perhaps, or desperation. "What do you want from me?" she asked, softer this time. The creature remained silent, its scales chiming faintly as it waited. She glanced at the glow again, then back at the being. Standing still felt like giving up, and Elara had never been one to surrender, not to fear, not to the unknown. She nodded, more to herself than to it, and began walking. The creature followed at a distance, a silent sentinel. The journey stretched her senses to their limits. She crossed a bridge of woven light, its surface swaying beneath her feet, edges fraying into mist that brushed her ankles. She passed a field of flowers that bloomed and withered in seconds, their petals spiraling upward like embers on a breeze. Once, she glimpsed a herd of hulking, bison-like creatures, their bodies woven from shadow, their eyes glinting like stars as they grazed on clouds. Each sight was a marvel, yet each deepened her unease. This wasn't her world. She didn't belong here. Time slipped away, unmoored and fluid, hours, perhaps, or mere minutes. Her legs ached, her mind buzzed with questions, but she pressed on toward the glow. It resolved into a massive structure, a dome of shimmering energy, its surface rippling like water struck by rain. The creature stopped a dozen paces back, its song fading into silence. It gestured toward the dome, then stepped away, as if its task was complete. Elara's hand hovered near the dome's surface, her reflection distorted in its waves. What if this was a trap? What if it swallowed her whole? But turning back meant wandering this strange place alone, and she wasn't sure she could bear that. She took a shaky breath, closed her eyes, and stepped through. The world shifted. She stood in a chamber vast enough to dwarf a cathedral, its walls lined with thousands of glowing orbs, each suspended in midair. At the center floated a figure, a woman, or something like one, her form translucent, her hair a cascade of starlight. She turned, and her eyes, deep and endless, locked onto Elara's. "Welcome, Elara," the figure said, her voice a harmony of tones that echoed inside Elara's skull. "You've crossed the veil." Elara's mouth went dry. "How do you know my name?" "Where am I?" "You are on Eryndral, the echo of worlds," the figure replied, drifting closer. Her presence was warm yet overwhelming, like standing too near a fire. "And I know you because you were brought here." "Chosen." "Chosen?" Elara's voice cracked. "I didn't choose anything. I was asleep, in my bed, and now I'm here. I don't understand. I just want to go home." The figure tilted her head, studying Elara with something like pity. "Home is not lost to you, but it is not where you stand now. You were brought here because you see what others cannot. Your dreams, your sketches, they are threads of the veil, glimpses of what lies beyond your world." Elara thought of her notebook, the constellations she'd drawn since she was a child. "You mean, my sketches? They are just stories I made up." "Not stories," the figure said. "Echoes. Eryndral is a crucible, a place where worlds are born and unmade. You glimpsed it in your dreams, and it called to you. Now, you are here to shape it, or to be shaped by it." The words sank into Elara like stones, heavy and cold. She shook her head, stepping back. "No. I'm not some creator. I'm just Elara. I sketch stars because I like them, because they make me feel less alone. I don't know how to shape a world, I barely know how to shape my own life." The figure's gaze softened, but she waved a hand, and the orbs flared to life. Each one projected a vision, a desert of singing sands, a city carved from a single gem, a void where creatures of sound danced in endless spirals. "These are possibilities," she said. "Fragments of what could be. Eryndral hungers for form, and you must give it one. Choose, or it will choose for you. Elara's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to run, but there was nowhere to go. The visions swirled around her, overwhelming in their beauty and strangeness. She pressed her hands to her temples, trying to steady herself. "Why me?" she whispered. "I'm nobody. I lost my job last month, I couldn't even keep that together. Why not someone brave, someone important?" "Because you dream," the figure said simply. "And dreams are the seeds of worlds. Look again, Elara. Feel them." Reluctantly, Elara turned to the orbs. She let herself linger on each vision, not just seeing but feeling, the heat of the singing sands, the cool pulse of the gem city, the weightless chaos of the void. Then one caught her, pulling her in like a tide, a world of endless twilight, where rivers of light flowed between floating islands, and beings of shadow and flame moved in fragile harmony. It felt familiar, like a melody she'd hummed without knowing the words. "This one," she said, pointing. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled. "What happens if I pick it? It becomes," the figure said, a smile rippling through her form. "And you become with it. But take your time. This is no small thing." Elara stared at the vision, her mind racing. She thought of her apartment, her fan, her quiet nights alone. She thought of her mother, who'd taught her to find beauty in the stars, and the ache of losing her years ago. This world, this twilight place, felt like a piece of that beauty, a piece of herself she'd buried. But it also terrified her. What if she wasn't enough for it? What if she failed? "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, tears prickling her eyes. "I'm scared." The figure drifted closer, her light brushing Elara's skin. "Fear is part of creation. It means you care. Choose not with certainty, but with hope." Elara swallowed hard, nodding. "Okay. This one." The orb flared, and the chamber dissolved into a rush of sensation, wind tearing at her hair, the scent of twilight blooms sharp in her nose, the hum of a world knitting itself together. When it settled, she stood on one of those floating islands, rivers of light gleaming below. The air thrummed with life, and she felt it echo in her veins, a connection she couldn't name. She wasn't alone. Beings emerged from the shadows, tall, winged, their forms flickering between substance and flame. They knelt before her, their voices a chorus of whispers. "Creator," they said. "No," Elara said, shaking her head. "I'm just me." But as she looked out over the world she'd chosen, she felt a shift within herself. She wasn't just Elara, not the Elara who'd fallen asleep sketching the Weaver. She was more, tied to this place in ways she couldn't yet grasp, and yet, a part of her still ached for home, for her notebook, her mother's laugh, the simplicity of her old life. The figure appeared beside her, softer now, her radiance dimmed. "You can return," she said. "When you're ready. Eryndral will always call to you, but the choice is yours." Elara wiped her eyes, gazing at the twilight horizon. She didn't know if she'd stay or go, not yet. For now, she let herself stand there, marveling at the world she'd shaped, a world no one had ever seen, born from a dream she'd dared to hold.